Hello everyone and welcome to Formula Euro League Season 7 Round 5 here in the Netherlands for the Dutch Grand Prix. I will be your commentator today, Jackson, and today I am alongside Alex Bomberg. Hello Alex.
Hello Jackson, welcome everyone to the stream, great to be back. And here racing at Zandvoort in the Netherlands. It was carnage this morning in Deft here, expecting more of the same today.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. It's a track that is very it's a tight track, easy to make mistakes on it. As you've already seen Ballon there with a big lock-up. Benjamin's got the intermediate selected in the pit lane. Let's hope he changes that up before he gets onto the racetrack. But as you said in the dev tier, it was very much a race of attrition. Basically, most of the drivers that finished the race scored points. So it'll be interesting to see. We've got quite a small field here at the moment, but we are expecting a few to join mid-quali, so don't worry too much. But again, a smaller field, and these guys, in theory, should be a bit better than those in the development tier. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys do, and where. It'll be interesting to see if we see the similar level of attrition. Will we see lots of safety cars, or will it be a simple sort of traditional Zandvoort race, which is very processional? What do you think we're going to see, Alex?
Well, it's all questions yet to be answered. You can't really predict. FEL Tier 1 can always throw a curveball at us and the drivers and the viewers, so looking forward to it. But as you mentioned, yeah, a couple of drivers joining during qualifying. Obviously this new time, the format being moved forward by 45 minutes in order to attract more drivers into the league. So anyone who is potentially looking to sign up to the league, just to let you know, we are now moving the start time, the launch time of the sessions from 6:45 to 6 o'clock. That's British summertime. That's 7:45 or 7 o'clock Central European time. But as you mentioned with the drivers joining mid-quali, I do believe there's still a glitch in the game, and do correct me if it's been patched, but there is still a glitch where if a driver joins mid-quali, they set a lap. A driver can join mid-quali and set the pole lap, but they'd still be bumped back to the back of the grid, if I'm not wrong, if they've joined mid-quali. Or has that been fixed? I'm not sure.
I don't know if it's been fixed. I think it's just sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Because in the past I've had it happen to me very recently, just a week or two ago, and then before then I've seen people not have said glitch when joining mid-quali, and since then I've joined a mid-qualifying and not had the glitch. So I don't think it necessarily has been patched. I think it's just intermittent. I think it's sort of fairly random, and of course there will be some sort of factor in play. But as of yet, I think it's sort of it's been on and off for me personally. Although the most recent time I've joined mid-quali, which was a couple days ago, I did get the qualifying position I qualified in. However, as I said, I've seen it on and off for a while now. Perhaps that has finally been fixed, which would of course be very good. But I mean, if not, I suppose it gives us a more exciting race if there's a quick guy down the back of the grid.
Well, I don't rule out a quick guide down the back of the grid in normal circumstances. Anyway, I believe Quicksilver I've just seen make a mistake through the quick right-hander for Quicksilver. So he comes back onto the track. Don't think he impeded anyone there. But currently, VRT Ballon in the Mercedes quickest, ever so slightly ahead of Midnight, who himself is ever so slightly ahead of VS Van Duncan. Currently the top three, separated by less than a tenth.
Yeah, it's a attritional closeness here in Formula Euro League. At the moment, I think Benjamin may have got confused at the track we're at. We're not currently in Imola. He has got the intermediate selected. Unusual strategy. I assume he's not going to plan on qualifying on them. I assume he'll. I don't see the point in a qualifying session that's relatively short around Zandvoort. There's no need to sort of waste time. There's no sort of you've got enough sets of tyres to fill the time that you have. So, I mean, it does appear that he is going to go for a push lap on the intermediate tyres, but, I mean, no matter how good you are, if you're on the intermediate tyres, you're not going to be qualifying anywhere other than last place. But it's strange to see a driver of Benjamin's level on the intermediate tyres. Occasionally I've seen it happen, sort of, perhaps drivers sort of that aren't really taking it too seriously do sort of those sorts of things. But to see in a league like Formula Euro League and a driver like Benjamin out on intermediate tyres in a qualifying session, certainly unusual. I mean, what do you think of it, Alex?
Yeah, maybe it's just a bit of data gathering, or maybe data gathering's the wrong word. This isn't quite real life, but sort of setup gathering. If he maybe he's just getting back into the game. Maybe he hasn't touched the game in a day or today or a couple of days, and he's just getting used to the handling model and seeing how the game feels without wearing out a set of tyres, just to really get his eye in, so he can go in and punish 3 sets of tyres in anger around here at Zandvoort. But just as you were saying, the 2 AlphaTauris have been quite close this season. This season, as I repeat, season twice. Lars Kramner up in 3rd place, so he's made it the top 4 separated, and just to say that, Kai Elting matches the time of VSR Duncan. So the top 5 separated by less than a tenth, and the top 3 separated by 21 thousandths of a second. So at the thick of it, it's all looking extremely tight. It's a short lap around here at Zandvoort, let's remember. So less room for error, and less corners to make up time if you make a mistake on a lap. So you really have to nail a lap around here, and the last 11 minutes of qualifying should be absolutely enthralling, Jackson.
Yeah, Zandvoort qualifying in a nutshell is extremely close. Just to give you an idea of the sectors at the moment, fast sector 1 goes to Kyle Dink, fast sector 2 goes to Midnight, fast sector 3 goes to Duncan, and the fast overall lap goes to Ballina. So none of them are together, which I find quite amusing. And it really is sort of, it's this league and this track, when you have close racing on a close track, it's going to be exciting in qualifying. Not sure about the race, this track known for its inability to overtake. But as things stand, if it stays this close, perhaps we could see a few battles emerge. As Sam Game has a bit of a slide there on his push lap, as he makes his way through the penultimate corner, and invalidates. That's not the ideal way to finish your lap, but still, at the moment he's only about 2.5 tenths off the top time, so not too much to worry about at this stage of the session for him.
Yeah, the gap's further down as Duncan did improve there. He's gone nearly 10th clear of Ballon. That's a bigger gap than what we've seen throughout the session. Lars on an outlap right now, and expect Ballon and Midnight and Kai to follow him out shortly, but the gaps behind that, the likes of George Nader, who I believe is up on his time right now as he takes the short run to the start-finish line, and he jumps up into pole. Good lap from George there.
I mean, fantastic, and still, in this session, no driver has more than 1 sector. Purple in this session, of course, George Nader has now got fast sector 1 and the fastest lap, but in terms of the actual sectors, Midnight Star's the quickest sector 2, and Duncan holds the quickest sector 3. So, do you think there could potentially be some setup differences in the cars that could be causing this differential in the fastest sectors, or do you just think that's what happens when you're on a track this close?
Bit of both, quite frankly. Of course, it's not a stock setup, it's not a fixed setup, I should say, really. The driver's given complete free realm to mess with aerodynamics, differential, suspension, camber, brakes, tyres, PSI, anything. They can play with it. And there's so many different combinations, and different driving styles will suit better setups. So it's inevitable that there's different setups from car to car, from driver to driver. But also the nature of the track, of course, we were mentioning a moment ago, is 21,000 separating the top 3, less than a tenth separating the top 5. And further down the field, the gaps are just as tight, from Luke in second all the way down to, well, sort of Joey all the way down to the edge of the top 10. There's 2 tenths there, so the margins are extremely tight, and they've got even tighter. Lars goes up into second, just 3 thousandths off George Nader, so no margin for error at all here, and this lines up some pretty exciting racing if the drivers are all this well matched for speed.
It's very true, and to continue my sector talk, no faster sectors there on Lars's lap. These sectors around here, they're all, I'd say, relatively unique. You've got the first sector, which has sort of a good range of corners. Of course, you start off with a medium to slow speed turn 1, then you've got sort of the medium and high speed parts in turn sort of 2, and then again you've got the banked turn 3. Then you've got that long straight where you need a bit of downforce taken off. Then you've got the high speed section as you then make your way into sector 2, which is more of a medium speed sector. And then in sector 3, it's got that tight chicane, which is very slow speed, and then into a medium speed corner, and then a completely flat out corner. So each sector seems to have a little bit of everything, but yet we're still seeing these sort of differences. So it shows how some drivers prefer different types of corners as well, and some drivers will prefer, let's say, the higher speed corners, and will sort of thrive in those parts of the lap. And then there'll be other drivers that love a slow speed corner, really able to maximise the sort of entry and exit, and they'll thrive in those corners. And it's going to be interesting to see how this sort of matches up when we do get into the race, because we see drivers sort of perhaps causing a bit of a sort of, let's say the leader is strong in the first and final sectors, but weak in the middle sector. Could we almost see them backing up the pack through the middle sector and then flying down the main straights, and sort of causing perhaps a couple incidents throughout the field, because sort of this differential in speed, it's going to be interesting to see how everyone sort of, how sensible the drivers will be, because at the end of the day, something that I noticed in the development here is a lot of drivers being sensible, sort of following each other, knowing that if you overtake this person, you're more likely going to hurt yourself in the long term by losing the rest of the cars like in front. But then there was other drivers that would just take every position as if they're fighting for the lead. So, I mean, in Tier 1, we'd expect a bit more of the sensible driving. However, don't rule out someone perhaps pushing too hard, perhaps a reserve, who has a bit less to lose, pushing a bit harder than the others. And I believe it's Ballina who's just gone off the road. I do not believe that was a push lap. I believe that was just perhaps getting out the way of somebody out there.
Yeah, following Duncan on a lap right now. I don't believe it's a glitch middle sector, but he is purple. You can confirm that for me on the task system. He's 1.5 tenths up on his best. 16 thousandths currently separate him and the top time George Nader. Duncan's going to run to the line. He's going to extend that gap. That's a big gap, bigger than what we're used to. Certainly throughout this session, nearly 2 tenths at the top. Very good lap from Duncan. I was following him on board. George Nader, he can't respond. He's 0.5 tenth down in the middle sector to Duncan, so he's going to have to pull out an absolutely almighty final sector if he's going to want to challenge VSR Duncan before the final runs. Remember, there will be one more run, presumably from each driver. George Nader runs to the line. He improves. He found 1.5 tenths in that last sector. It wasn't enough now. It does take him within 0.5 tenth of Duncan. Does not overthrow him at the top though. Who else is on a lap? Quicksilver. He, I believe, has just posted that lap time. He's on his way back to the pitch. Yes, he is indeed. We've got Luke starting a lap now. He invalidated his lap before. He's looking to move up from just 10th place at the moment. Is Luke Heckkamper as well. He is, I can't quite tell. I believe he's on an in lap. Yes, he is. He's in 0 ERS. So Luke, one of the only drivers on a lap at the moment. In fact, the only driver on a push lap. Let's see, and he invalidates there through, that is turn number 9, and second invalidation in a row for Luke, and he's going to want to get a move on, because 10th at the moment for the 5-time race winner last season. Not all rosy for Luke at the moment, Jackson.
That's very true. Luke went into the season looking very strong last season, potentially a champion contender, but he's missed a couple of races and has found himself in a position where he's almost an invitational position, in the sense that he's not really fighting for the championship now, despite arguably having the pace to. Of course, winner of round 1 after Benjamin's unfortunate final lap disconnection. But Luke, down a P10 at the moment. It's not looking good at the moment for him, but I mean, less than 4 tenths off the pole, so it can change in a heartbeat here. So we'll have to wait and see if he can pull it out of the bag on the final attempt. But of course, now with only that one final attempt left, it's all or nothing, and perhaps that could put a bit too much pressure on him. Perhaps they will invalidate that final run. But again, some drivers thrive under that pressure. Some drivers will set their best lap in those conditions, so perhaps they'll be able to do that and maybe even snatch away the pole. But I mean, I think I could say they could take pretty much any of the drivers in the field at the moment could probably take the pole. However, one uncharacteristically slow team is Renault at the moment, with Benjamin down in 14th and Tim down in 15th. What do you think is going on there, Alex?
Not much. You'd expect a lot more from, well, especially Benjamin. Tim, he struggled towards the mid to the back end of this game for pace. He's only about 3 tenths off Benjamin, but 3 tenths here can quite literally be the difference between first and, well, 8th place, or maybe even 10th place, depending which way you look at it. But following Benjamin, he's just gone very sideways through what is the exit of turn 10, which ruined his run through turn 11. We'll see his middle sector split. He's a second down, so I do believe Ben might have been on an in-lap actually, so maybe I'm over-analysing that one. But not looking comfortable is Benjamin. In terms of Tim, he started his, what will be, well, he won't be able to get back to the pits, but he will have the opportunity to do one more lap if he does so please, or does so choose. He's half a tenth up in the first sector, not entirely competitive though on that first sector time. He's not setting the timing boards alight by any means, as we start to see a lot of the drivers exit the pits for their first runs. Traffic gets out of the way for Tim into this tricky chicane. He's 200s up in the middle sector. He's really not finding the pace that he'd like to at the moment, Tim, and without a pretty remarkable final sector, I don't think he's going to break into the top 10. One advantage of that is that he does get a free tyre choice for the race. Tim improves on his time, can't improve on his position. Benjamin has also retired, so both Renaults starting outside the points, Jackson.
Yeah, this is uncharacteristic for the Renault team, but I'm sure they've got it under control. These guys, two very experienced drivers, so I'm sure they've done it for a reason, and I suppose they'll show us that in the race. But of course, if they end up in those positions by the end of the race, then that definitely would be a surprise. As looks like the final runs are starting to start. That's a very weird way of phrasing it, but are beginning at the front of the field.
Just to bear in mind, Jackson, one point to bear in mind, sorry for cutting you off, just before we get to the final end of these few runs. Remember back to Bahrain, where Midnight, he came on after winning, he came into the party with us on air and said, yeah, I intentionally qualified outside of the top 10. On tracks like this with high tyre wear, sometimes drivers do actually favour, like Midnight and Bahrain, starting on that fresh set. So maybe, let's not go all guns blazing. Maybe this is a tactical decision. Maybe not Tim, but certainly Benjamin to get in that fresh set and moving further up the order, because certainly Benjamin has got a lot more pace in the tank than that, as we do see George Nader through the final corner. I haven't been watching his sector times. It seemed a fairly clean lap. Can he overthrow Duncan for provisional pole? No, he can't. He doesn't improve. 300ths of a second down. He's going to have to settle with second at best. Ballina slots in behind. 600ths of a second off pole, and it looks like no one at the moment can overthrow Duncan. He's about a tenth up on his best through the middle sector. How's his final sector been? It's good enough. 1.5 tenths better than his previous best. The only driver to break into the 1 minute 7s, a 7.8. That's a really strong lap from Duncan. Luke did jump up into 6th, but Midnight only 7th.
Well, I mean, that is a surprising qualifying session, thanks for that. Not Duncan getting pole, that was almost sort of, for a driver of his pace, he had it throughout the session, what he could do. But George Nader up there in P2, it's nice to see him battling up the front. Same goes to Ballina, who's consistently been up there this season. Sam Gamer, a strong qualifying for him in 4th. Then Lars in 5th, Luke in 6th, that's solid for the Williams driver. Midnight down in 7th though, that is a big surprise there for him. Because, I mean, after the season he's had so far, if he qualified outside the top 10, I would almost expect that, given his tyre knowledge. But to be down in 7th, there's no strategic gain from that, so it is going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
It's a really unideal place for Midnight to start as well, because starting in 7th, not only do you miss out on the free tyre choice that you get from starting 11th and below, but also you don't get any run on the likes of the top 3, because you've still got another 2 or 3 places separating yourself on the podium position. So Midnight sort of in no man's land in the middle of the top 10 there, and he's going to look to move forward and progress as quickly as he possibly can.
Yeah, it's going to be crucial to avoid getting any damage though as you make your way up the order, because a circuit as tight as this, it is very easy just to, if the driver in front of you maybe has a little less confidence for a corner, you could very easily go into the back of them, anticipating more speed from them than they actually show. Because there's some corners here where if you nail it, you can go so much quicker than if you're sort of taking it carefully. And sort of, if you're driving cautiously around here, you do lose so much time, just because the nature of the circuit means it is very sort of, you have to almost push to be able to get any lap time out of it at all, which is going to make it tricky in the race and potentially could be something that splits the strategies in the race. Those drivers perhaps with a bit more confidence in their tyre wear, not worried too much about conserving, potentially going soft mediums, but then potentially you've got those that not a bit worse in their tyre wear, perhaps want to push a bit harder, will go soft hards. And then you've got those that are outside the top 10, they're going to be the ones to watch. Where are they going to go in terms of tyre choice? Are they going to start on the hards, go long, go for the softs at the end? Or are they going to start on the mediums, perhaps try and stretch it out into for softs at the end? Or will they pit early for hards and just try and sort of align themselves somewhere? But either way, I think for drivers like Midnight, Benjamin, the key for this race is them to get into clear air, I think. Or get into a group of cars where they're at the pace they can go, rather than being stuck behind perhaps slightly slower drivers. But as we saw in qualifying, it is so close here, I don't think there's a slow driver in the field. Or at least, like it's so unbelievably close. I don't think there's a driver in the field that I'd be surprised to see win. But now, the drivers prepare for their formation lap here, and prepare for the race start in the long term. Let's get up the details for you all. Let's have a look at the tyres that everyone has chosen to start on. Driver on the hard tyres, they are Joey and Smash. Then you've got Yuri and Benjamin on the mediums, and FDR Bandini on the mediums too. But a surprising amount of drivers outside the top 10 starting on the soft tyres. What do you think of that one, Alex?
As expected. I'm surprised Tim and Scott have gone for the soft tyres. Personally, I think that's the wrong choice. I hope they prove me wrong. But the soft tyres, not durable, also really suffer with temperature around here. The middle sector really cooks and fries and grills, if you want me to continue the kitchen analogies, the front tyres. So front pressure, front PSI for the tyres will be, and rear I suppose, will be the lowest you'll see all season. Most drivers run it very low a lot of the time, but especially here and Singapore, but you know, mainly here to keep the tyre temperatures under control. And still, even with them low PSI, it still can be a struggle sometimes. And do expect overheating tyres to be a factor of this race, which is why a lot of the drivers favour the medium and the hards, not only for the durability, but also because it's a little bit easier to keep them under control. And I believe we have had a disconnection from Quicksilver, so hopefully he can get back into the lobby quickly. Yeah,
that does look correct, and that is a shame.
But in terms of strategy, I think soft to hard is certainly possible, but soft to medium is also possible. We've seen Benjamin do that before on this game. We'll see if the likes of the leaders have that in mind. Will we see a two-stop today? Will safety car, will weather play a part? We'll have to see over the next 36 laps.
But the cars are on the grid now, and they are prepared for the race start, and the lights are coming on now. Revs are rising, 5 red lights, and we are racing here in Zandvoort, and that is a good start for Duncan, but it's been a solid start for George. Can he get the nose on the inside? Yes, he does. He sends it up inside of Duncan, but it's hurt his exit there. However, he's just going to keep his nose in. No, he's not. He's going to back out of it there. As that is Balner looking like he's held on 2P3. There's lots of battling further down in the pack. As that's Sam Gamer and Midnight wheel to wheel there, and Lars also getting involved. So Sam Gamer a bit of grass, perhaps, for Sam Gamer there, but he's now pinned in between the two Alpha Tauris as they make their way through into the high-speed right-handers here. Tricky part of the track, and they all look to have survived so far here on this race start. And let's see if they can keep this up. Seeing lots of overtaking throughout the field here, but at the front it is pretty much the same as they started, as Duncan does continue to lead them away into this tight and tricky chicane now. And now his aim is to try and break that DRS, see if he can do it. If not, just try and lead this train and hope that he doesn't lose out because of him, his position. Bandini at the back of the pack at the moment. Seems like perhaps a cautious lap one for him. Perhaps he has had a moment with another driver. But Duncan does lead lap 1, and ignore the timing screen as that is broken.
Yep, should sort itself in, well, hopefully next lap. Do not be deceived, we are on lap 2, not lap 3 of this race. Duncan leads us away, building up a healthy gap to George Nader, who has had a good turn of pace for this race, I will say, and hopefully for his sake he can continue that. Ballina right on the back of him though. That's a dangerous gap, 3/10. Once DRS gets activated, if he's smart with his DRS, he can certainly have a run on the Haas driver and start to look at the rear wing, at the pink rear wing of the Racing Point, rather than the black and white rear wing of the Haas just ahead of him. George Nader certainly holding his own at the moment though, but Duncan looking to check out if he can break that DRS zone by the time lap 3 rolls around, or by the time this time next lap, he'll certainly be sitting quite comfortably in terms of the drivers behind him. But yeah, Ballina still pressurising George Nader, and Lars, Sam Gamer, and to be fair, everyone behind him following quite closely until Yuri, who's got the best part of a 7/10 gap, as he's being pressurised by Scott Bunya, and both of the Renaults making a good start, 11th and 12th for Benjamin and Tim respectively.
Yeah, it's been an interesting start. A lot of sort of battling further down the pack, but at the front it has been fairly quiet. In terms of position gained or lost, driver the most gained is Scott Bugner, who has gained up into 14th position. Good start for the McLaren driver. But on the other end of that is Joey losing 7 places. That is not the ideal situation. Especially seen as Bandini in front does have some wing damage and is missing their left end plate, which is going to be costing them quite a bit of time. And long term of this race, it could be the difference in a position or two. And they've already dropped off the back of the pack. But at the moment, it is one long DRS train all the way down to 16th place. And in the development here, we saw throughout the most of the first stint, from 3rd down to about 14th, 15th, I believe, one long DRS train. So, be interesting to see here if anyone can break free of the DRS, or if they are going to stay in position for now. And whilst there is a DRS train, we're not going to see much overtaking. But any overtaking that does happen could well break up the DRS train a bit, and cause some splits in it. But Alex, for you, who do you think is looking strong at the moment?
You got to stay a bit more hopeful than that. There's not going to be any overtaking, Jackson. Come on, commentator's spirit. Let's go. We've got a great race ahead of us. Do not go anywhere. A lot of the drivers looking good. DRS being activated certainly helped George Nader. It's sort of pulled him back within half a second, or it has pulled him back within half a second of Duncan ahead. Duncan was looking a little bit too comfortable for the Haas's liking, and George activating that rear flap, pulling him back within. But having said that, throughout the middle sector of this lap, Duncan again starting to stretch his legs a little bit, so we'll have to keep an eye on that gap. And you've got to say, if George drops out of that DRS range from Duncan, not only is it fantastic for Duncan's race because he can just check out, but it's going to be very harmful for George's race if he drops out, because all of a sudden he's going to be under massive threat from the likes of Ballina, Lars, and well, pretty much everyone coming with him, all the way down to Scott in 14th, who that's where the gap seems to be. And it looks like Quicksilver is going to make that move up into 14th place. But we're going to focus on the top flight. Duncan's still leading away.
There. Scott has just gone back up the inside of Quicksilver there, but has not been able to make it work. These two battling away, that could cost some DRS to those in front, and I said that sort of some battling could well lead to some breaks appearing in this DRS train, which of course in the long term will create better racing. But now Quicksilver dropping out of it, he's going to have to push now on this lap, use a bit of extra ERS to really reel them back in, because if you lose that DRS, then you are going to lose a lot of time, because it is really a train. You sort of get very much pulled along by the DRS, no matter what your pace is. You really can get pulled along in the DRS train. And whilst the interesting thing I find about DRS trains is, let's say there's a 1/10 a lap difference between each driver in the DRS train. Let's say there's 10 cars in the DRS train. Drive at the front, setting, taking these lap times. Okay, let's have a look at the actual lap times to try and work this one out to actually make sense. Okay, so let's say we've got one driver setting 1:12 lap times. Let's say 1:12.0 for example, and they're up in 3rd or 4th. And then we've got a guy in 13th or 14th who's setting 1:13.0s. As long as in between the two drivers there's small gaps, in theory those group of cars can stay nose to tail, because each car will be quick enough to keep up with the car in front, and despite across the entire train being a big difference in pace, those sort of small intervals allow this train to stay in in one long train and one long piece. And that's how DRS trains sort of like this stay so strong. But all it takes is one mistake, one slight slide, one oversteery moment, and that can all change. And that's when we see sort of these sort of breakout battles that sort of come out of nowhere, and you never really expect them, because they tend to not come from pace, but from mistakes that cause the breaks in the train. We have at the moment 14 cars still in this DRS train, and whilst DRS trains are typically not great for racing, personally I love them. I think it means that it gives so many more drivers the opportunity to potentially win it, because it means the leaders don't pull a gap to those that are further down the order. That's personally why I love them, because it sort of allows for more strategic play and gives us more of a chance for a surprise result. And I am always a big fan of an underdog finisher. And yeah, I hope we see one today, but at the moment, the top three at the moment are looking very strong here. And it's going to be interesting to see who can perhaps do a different strategy and take the fight to these guys, because at the moment they're looking very strong, but in racing you can never say never. And in the past I've seen some big changes. All it takes is one safety car here at Zandvoort and the whole race is thrown away, and it's almost like new drivers become favourites. So we're just going to have to wait and see what these guys can do. And I've got a feeling there'll be at least one surprise by the end of today's race. But it's impossible to say where that surprise will come from. Yeah, Alex, what are you thinking at the moment with the Renault pace?
It's not blown me away, I'll be completely honest, but as I said, they made progress at the start. You mentioned, many times throughout this race, it's a hard track to overtake on, so you've got Benjamin right up the chuff of Heckkamper for P10, so Benjamin's got a lot of ERS to play with. He should, for all intents and purposes, make that move. He does, nice and easy, into turn number 1, purple final sector for Benjamin there. He's helped along by the rear flap in his rear wing, getting him about 12 miles an hour down that straight into turn number 1. Obviously wind variable on that straight line speed, but Benjamin, the only driver on the medium tyres, or to put it quite simply, the only driver not on the soft tyres in the top 10, for that matter in the top 12, and he can push on now, because as the soft runners start to struggle with tyre wear, with tyre heat, tyre conservation starts to kick in, as Tim Wentic picks up our first penalty of the day. But as the drivers on the soft tyres start to run into troubles, Benjamin has that little extra margin to everyone else. He can push a little bit more. He's got a little bit more life in his tyres that he can utilise, and we should see that come to fruition throughout the rest of this stint.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how those mediums play out, because it doesn't take long for the soft tyres to wear here. But what I noticed in the development tier race is, despite the wear often being quite bad, in terms of pace, there isn't a cliff like other tyres, and they seem to hang out much longer than other tyres. Now, whilst they do obviously degrade and lose time, they don't seem to hit a cliff like you see at other circuits, for example China, and perhaps Canada as well as another track where tyre wear is quite high on the soft tyres. But Benjamin, he'll, I believe at some point, definitely be leading this race, unless perhaps there is a safety car in the next lap or two that potentially could put the entire field on hards and throw away any chance of strategy. But even then, you've got the question of what can Benjamin do equal tyres to everyone else.
Well, I think Benjamin will be targeting the hards anyway, because I don't know. I think he'd just lose too much time stretching to the softs and not have as much of a gain as you would at other tracks. I mean, please do correct me if I'm completely wrong, Jackson, but I do think Benjamin will be targeting the hards with maybe a lap or two overcut here, or maybe a bit longer than a lap or two, but that's certainly what I would do in his position. But then again, I'm not an esports driver that's signed with Comrade, one of the top esports teams on the platform, so what do I know? I'm just a guy that talks at his television at cars going around a track. But I do have some knowledge to say that Kyle Tink is in the pits, and he goes onto the hard tyres, so as expected, that's quite early for a hard tyre change, you'd argue. Scott Bunyan, who pit a couple of laps ago, is onto the medium tyres.
I would say that's about the start, sort of first 1 or 2 laps of sort of, I'd say from here to around lap 13 is when the hards, sort of is when you would pit for hards. sort of 14, 15, 16, that's when you'd potentially go for the mediums. On the subject of Benjamin, now I'm also not a professional in this area, and I'm less experienced than you when it comes to these sorts of things. But if I was in Benjamin's seat, I'd be trying to go long for the soft tyres, because the key thing about being in this DRS train is that he doesn't have to push. He doesn't have to try and push the tyres. He can just hang on at the moment, let the drivers in front of him pull him along, and then when he's put in clear air, start to push a bit more. And if he can get those tyres to around lap 20 to 22, he could definitely pit for softs and go to the end. I know that 16 laps is about the maximum these soft tyres can do on sort of towards the end of the race.
Yeah, we've got leaders in the pits, Jackson. Leaders in the pits. Sorry to cut you off there.
That is perfectly fine. I was pretty much done.
Duncan, a hard tyre. Sam Gamer, hard tyre. Lars, hard tyre. Monster, hard tyre. Heck Camper, hard tyre. So where's Kai going to come out in all this? I'm not entirely sure as to quite where he was before all of the pit stop phase started to play out, but if he was behind, he's gained on the likes of Monster, and he's well within the DRS of Lars and Sam Gamer. The question now, what is George and Balliner's pace going to be like on this presumably in lap?
I mean, you say that, but I feel like if you're not going to pit around about now, chances are you're going to, instead of, you've already lost the advantage of the undercut, you're going to be undercut now. You surely, at this stage, you're better off just to commit to the fact that you've lost those places and try and take them back on strategy. In development here, we saw the sort of the soft runners, at least from memory, we saw them at split here as George Nader does indeed come to pits, but Balliner stays out. Midnight also comes into the pit lane. What tyres will these guys go to? Very early for the medium, so if they do that, they are very brave, and they do indeed stay. They do go for the hard tyres. But I definitely think that I would guess now that Balliner is indeed going to go for the medium tyres, because you've lost such an advantage of the undercut. You're going to lose so many places. Surely you're going to go for the mediums, because I mean, from experience in development here, the soft tyre runners are about split, going from hard to mediums. But I mean, you would assume the guys here in Tier 1 do know their stuff, but arguably a bit better than those in development tier. But still, you'd expect some similarities, and to see such a difference in strategies in terms of the soft starters, I must admit I'm quite surprised and intrigued to see what Balliner will do now, because he's gone 12 laps. Why not do 3 or 4 more?
Yeah, interestingly as well, looking a little bit further down, Jackson, George Nader still came out in an effective P2, but 1.6 seconds off Duncan. So we got a yellow flag. Is that Heck Camper?
It is Tim Wentink who has gone around. And Heck Camper, both have been, they've caught. Safety car deployed. Safety car is deployed. Balliner.
Oh, what a shame for Balliner.
He's got past the safety car. He's past the safety car though, so he will get a pit stop in.
He will. Does that mean the likes of Duncan will have to respect a delta? No.
We'll have to wait and see here, as they will have to pass the safety car, but it will not hold them up here, those behind further down the order. But so I think here, Balliner surely going to be able to go to the mediums here. With the laps of safety car, surely it is possible now to try the mediums. Because, okay, let's say 2 laps safety car, that's what, lap 15. 20, I'd say 22 laps is absolute maximum on the medium tyres. And Benjamin, of course, is going to have to go to the hards. But still, this is, in terms of strategy, quite good for them. What do you think is the estimated pit stop under safety car?
As in the loss?
Yeah, yeah. Pit stop loss under safety car here.
Obviously, it's respecting the delta, so it's less than a full safety car, I believe.
I mean, well,
yeah, it is, but it's still enough.
Surely it's the same as if it's a virtual safety car.
Yeah, I think it's that kind of delta, and I think it's enough to drop Balliner behind Duncan. How far behind? I'm not sure. Let's see what Benjamin does. Surely
yes, they will.
Yeah, they both do. We've seen Benjamin make medium tyres work from lap 16 before in VRL this season, actually, where he won. He is, of course, the champion of VRL for season 6.
Balliner here could lead. Sorry to interrupt there, but they're going to be side by side coming out the pits here. Balliner on the inside line. He's going to be allowed to push a bit more, but he's not be able to do it. Not quite able to do it. But on those medium tyres, Balliner here in P2 on medium tyres has got a good chance to win here. Whilst Benjamin, slightly fresher hards. This is going to be... I said things can change with one safety car. Benjamin's gone from back end of the points here to very much a contender for the victory. So now I think it all comes down to Balliner's, how Balliner can treat these medium tyres. If they can survive to the end of the race, you'd argue he's the favourite now. But I think it's key enough Balliner to take the lead early in these tyres and then just try and nurse them to the end. And hope that Benjamin isn't too quick on those hards, because if Benjamin can show the pace that we know he has, I think it's going to be hard to beat him. But it should be one hell of a battle here. Duncan with the track position, Balliner with the softer tyres, but Benjamin with the raw pace at the moment. Let's wait and see. I mean, Alex, who do you think is going to come out on top here?
Yeah, you keep catching me out with these questions, Jackson. I don't know. I really don't know. The logical option is to say Balliner, but you know, never count out Duncan, never count out Benjamin. We could have another curveball thrown at us in 10 laps time, where you know all of a sudden the heavens open and we got Tim Wentick 3 laps in the lead on full wet tyres. But yeah, that's one eventuality. Whether it'll happen or not, I'm not entirely sure. But if Balliner's smart and he uses his tyre advantage to his advantage, there's no reason he can't win this race. Will penalties play a factor? I'm not sure. I will ask for the mid-race penalty warning update in just a moment, Jackson. So maybe you can have a quick look at that whilst I'm just running through the order. But Duncan in the lead, he's going to be susceptible to Balliner behind him. But Benjamin as well, this safety car has worked an absolute treat for him. Possibly not the preferred strategy he'd like to be on. Maybe he was looking to use the softs at the end. But nevertheless, I think he's going to take an effective P3. And he can charge to the flag, and he's got the freshest tyres, other than Balliner. He's got the freshest tyres out of everyone in the top 10.
Yeah, and as you requested, the warning situation, top 7, all 0 warnings. Yuri has 1, then Quicksilver also has 1. Then it is, sorry, some of these guys I think they joined mid-quali, so I have to sort of look up who they are. Smash has 1, 4 for Luke, and 1 for Scott, I believe, and then 3 on obviously the penalty there for Tim Wentink, and hearing potential rain from
rain. I mean, I was joking. I was joking with the heavens opening, but has the prophecy come true?
Who knows? Who knows?
Potential rain. Potential. That's no certain. Uncertainty from Kyle Ting. He's down in P13 on the medium tyres. Let's see how I can make that work. But potential rain would explain Smash's tyre choice. He's in 12th on the soft tyres. So if there's rain coming soon, it would make sense to utilise the quickest compound and less durable. The compound with the least durability, that soft tyre, of course. So let's see.
Now, Duncan through the penultimate corner here. When will he go? Deft here, we saw a driver go too early and actually catch the safety car. Will Duncan make the same mistake? Doesn't look like he will. The safety car is now in the pit lane. Track is ready to go around. We've got a collision further down the order. Duncan, he's going to wait until the line here. He's going to wait until the last possible second, it looks like. As he's starting to speed up a little bit. And he goes now. Who, as that's into the pits further down the order. And that is Smash, the driver you had suggested was on perhaps a different strategy, predicting rain, but Duncan leads the way and has had a good restart, clips the grass and gravel there a bit, but Duncan does lead the way here as there's battling further down the order. We've got the AlphaTauris battling, as long with Sam Gamer, for nearly a bit of contact there, as Midnight does get past Lars there. Oh, so that's off in the background, that's Monster off through the grass and gravel, and he's kept it out of the barriers at least. Same cannot be said for the Polystyrene sponsorship. But Monster, oh, and he's crashed it, and he's off the road and is out of the race. He has crashed there, and it appears he's had dirty tyres and just spun up the rears, trying to get the car going again, and he is now in the barriers through the high-speed section of the lap. Meanwhile,
yeah, turn 8, he went off. Sorry to cut you off there, Jackson, but
fine.
A shame for Racing Point. They've got one driver in the lead, the other one out the race now. No safety car, surprising, but we have just come out of the safety car period. Just on Smash, I'll do a quick word on Smashers. Keep an eye on the front. Actually, it looks like Ballina might be making a move. He's closing on his rival. He goes to the inside. Duncan chops off the inside. Ballina forced around the outside of Tarzan. Can he make the move? He's going to keep his nose pinned in there. Back on the throttle. Overtake enabled. Side by side through 2. Side by side through 3. Ballina has the inside line into the banked 4 now. They're shoving and banging wheels. But Ballina up into the lead. Duncan has to settle for second place. Can he come back at Ballina now? Though into the downhill turn 8. He has a little look on the inside, can't quite make it work, and it looks as if Ballina, for now at least, has that position sealed up into first. Whew, that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, that was one hell of a battle they had there. Bellin and I said he had to take the lead early in this stint, and he has done exactly that here, as he aims to take that Mercedes to the checkered flag. But I mean, it's going to be tough for him. It's not going to be an easy drive. You're going to have to nurse those tyres. But if the pace he's shown so far, if you can keep that up, even with nursing the tyres, he should be able to contend here. Definitely contend for the victory. Benjamin, meanwhile, not looking necessarily what you'd expect to see from him. But perhaps being smart here, holding back, letting the two up front battle it out. Maybe if those two had battled a bit longer, he would have had a better chance at taking the lead and perhaps at least getting in the fight. But at the moment, I think Benjamin is being smart about this, protecting his tyres, and perhaps focusing on the long game. Although I must admit, going on the onboard here, it doesn't look like he's pushing much, but he's not exactly flying at the moment in terms of his pace, because he's losing time to Duncan, and Duncan's losing time to Ballina. So Ballina here trying to break that DRS, and at the moment being successful.
Yeah, throughout the day, I haven't been blown away by Benjamin's pace. As I said before, not really the cutting edge sort of world beater pace we've seen from Benjamin, not only last season in FEL, but you know, PSGLF2, VRL over the last season as well, where Benjamin dominated. Yeah, not what we're I say not what we're used to, but he's still up in third, fighting for some solid points. It's not been a great season for Benjamin. Of course, he had that wheel disconnection on the last lap, and to be frank, the last corner, I believe it was, in Silverstone. So every point matters, and Benjamin just needs to kickstart his season and get some points on the board. So third would be great, and he has just about kept within DRS range, although it's not activated yet, or it is activated, as I say, just activated this lap, or last lap, for use for this lap. But yeah, Benjamin in third, and he's got to keep that DRS to Duncan, because if not, he could fall victim to George Nader behind, who will be pushing extremely hard for, I believe, will be his first podium in FEL Tier 1.
I should know whether he has one already. I do not, sadly.
Thanks, Jackson. Fantastic insight for you here on
yes, of
FEL
course.
commentary.
But at the moment, another driver I've been watching, Kyle Tink. As that's a retirement in the pit lane for M&T Smash.
Just a little quick one on Smash before you move to Eltink, Jackson. He pit strangely after that safety car period, which is, of course, a strange thing to do. And then, even more strangely, he went on to 13-lap-old hard tyres. So I think he put back on the tyres he'd already used in the first stint, which was extremely strange. But yeah.
That is, I mean, an intriguing one there to see. But on to Kyle Tink here. Second driver on the medium tyres at the moment. And so far he's been making it work, currently sitting in 7th position. And has caught up to the back of this group of cars, trying to make his way past Midnight here. That's ignore me, that was Smash, whose car has decided to, whoa, that would be scary. His car is ghosted.
Thankfully it's ghosted.
Thank God for ghosting. But as Kyle Tink here looks like potentially could be going for the move here. No, he's used a lot of ERS though, I must say. As he's on the back of Midnight. But Kyle Tink, similarly to Ballina, is trying to make these positions early on in the stint, perhaps so that he can nurse the tyres later on, and try and make it work then.
Kai can get a podium here.
Definitely can. If he's definitely got the pace. As a driver, he's definitely got the pace. And I must say, in qualifying, I'm surprised to see him definitely not. I'd say he's definitely got the pace to be top 5 in qualifying, but I think qualified down in 8th place. So it'll be interesting to see how he does in the race. Now he's got a tyre advantage. Can he use it? But at the moment, he's blown for his ERS, but appears to be pretty settled in 7th, and doesn't look to be right now planning any overtaking manoeuvres. But meanwhile, at the front, flying away with it, is Ballina, and the question is, how long can that pace last?
Well, he'd hope the whole race.
Yeah.
Realistically, though, he can probably keep this pace up for the next sort of 8 laps, and then he might, if he's smart, he'll be thinking about tyres now, and could keep the tyres in a good window whilst they're still good, so in the event that he needs to push, he can. If he's not as smart, he'll go guns to the wall now, then realise in the 6 laps left to go that he's got no rubber and fall off a cliff. So, fingers crossed for Ballina's sake, because Scott Bunya's off, might have been contact there. There was contact there with Bandini. Neither driver out the race. I didn't get a view on that, Jackson. I don't think you did
I
either.
did not
so
either, no.
the stewards will have a look at that later. But yeah, if Ballina's smart, he'll be considering the tyres now. He'll be considering his ERS situation, which is less than favourable. He's probably running about 25%. I can't see exactly, and I haven't got the graphic up. But yeah, if I was Ballina, I'd be thinking about the tyres, thinking about the long run, and in the event that, maybe he does lock a tyre and go a bit deep into one of the corners and needs to push to get out that second, he should have the spare rubber to be able to do so. But we'll have to see. I'm not in his head, but fingers crossed he can keep this pace up and become another winner this season. However, Duncan, still hot on his heels, he's got much older tyres, 3 lap older tyres than Benjamin now. And I say much older tyres as if it was a massive difference, but that can really be the difference maker at the end of the race. If that's 2/10, that adds up throughout the course of the next 14 laps, Jackson.
Yeah, you're very right there. It is, with such short laps here, any sort of deficit per lap, it almost melts your gaps away. And whilst these tyres do wear off, whilst I said earlier they don't really hit a cliff, they do hit a cliff, but very late on the stint, usually around sort of just before they sort of get to the puncture territory. And it also depends on the driver. If the driver feels the need to conserve the tyres, around here it's so hard to conserve that your lap times will completely drop off. And you'd only ever do that if you absolutely had to save your tyres or had a big gap behind you. But it's going to be interesting to see how far Ballina is willing to push these tyres. If Ballina is willing to push these to right up to 80% and risk it, then I'm sure he'll be able to keep this pace up for a very long time. But if he's thinking about potentially sort of not getting him any near a risk of a tyre failure, he'll be looking to perhaps back off almost a bit here and limit his pace. But the fact he only has less than 10% ERS at the moment suggests that he is pushing at the moment. And it'll be interesting to see if he can keep this level of speed up, or if Duncan perhaps could get involved. But as things stand, Ballina is in control at the front. Benjamin sitting in P3 still, and he just doesn't look comfortable in the car from when I go on board with him. And he's definitely sort of not pushing in terms of ERS as much as the drivers around him. But he definitely doesn't look his usual super sort of almost near perfect self. As whilst his pace is very strong at the moment, it doesn't necessarily look like it's going to be able to win the race. At least at the moment it doesn't. Perhaps if he turns up the engine modes a bit more, uses a bit more ERS, and is willing to risk a bit more, then he will perhaps get into the fight for the win. But at the moment he seems comfortable behind Duncan, and almost watching Ballina driving to distance.
Yeah, as much as you say Benjamin not looking as comfortable, he's sat pretty in third. Lots of ERS.
Oh, sorry. Sorry to interrupt you there. Contact further down the order, Hetkamper, Yuri, and Joey had a bit of a pile-up going into the turn 3 banked hairpin, and I believe they picked up some damage there. It just looks like Hetkamper's got damage. Joey already had damage from the previous lap, but Hetkamper now with 38% damage to his wing. That will almost certainly require a pit stop from him. It'll be interesting to see now. He'll need a safety car. That's the simplest way of saying it. He'll need a safety car to get back into the fight here. And he should comfortably come out ahead of FER Bandini. So Hetkamper should be safe in terms of keeping P14. But he's going to lose a lot of time there. And as he nearly crashes it again then. That's not ideal for the Haas driver there.
Talking about Haas drivers, one at the bottom of it the other at the thick end of the field, George Nader, he has dropped out of DRS of Benjamin now, and he's very much falling victim to Sam Gamer, who was right up his chuff through turn 4, and Sam Gamer not too healthy in his DRS, so he might want to pull that back a little bit before going again. But 11 laps left to go in this race, and I'll be honest, George will do a good job if he wants to hold on to P5, or P4 I should say, because P5 Sam Gamer behind him is going to be pushing him all the way home.
Just been having a quick look at the tyre wear now, to get an idea on that situation. Annoyingly, Ballina does not have his available to see, so unless he really does have 0% on all 4 tyres, which would be one hell of a tyre management. But instead I'll just sort of look at Kai Elting's tyre wear. And I've noticed at the moment, Sam Gamer and Kai Elting have very similar tyre wear, despite being on different compounds. There's I think maybe a 2-lap difference between the 2 sets of tyres. I started Sam Gamer passing George Nader there for 4th place. As you predicted, that move was just waiting to happen. George Nader will now probably slot in, but Sam Gamer with tyre wear, well, similar to that of a medium tyre runner. Be interesting to see how he does in that area. But Duncan also up in P2 at the moment, similar levels of tyre wear, slightly lower, a couple percent lower, at 37% being his worst. But given Ballina's pace, and obviously not being able to see his tyre wear, I'd guess he is around 41% on his worst tyre, which of course around here is your front left tyre, with all the high-speed corners. It is a tyre that melts away, it feels like sometimes, especially with some of the temperatures you can reach around here. But I'd guess Ballina sort of maybe mid to low 40s in his percentage of wear, whereas Duncan 39% wear on his front left. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out for Duncan, because he's got that sort of 3-lap older hard tyres, but still the hard tyres should easily be able to make it to the end of the race. And given sort of the percentage difference to Ballina, it's still incredibly hard to guess at who's in the stronger position at the moment. But I will say Duncan is starting to reel in Ballina again. So, I mean, Alex, what do you think of Duncan's pace at the moment? Do you think he's going to be able to catch and pass Ballina before the end of this race?
It depends how Ballina's been driving. I haven't been watching him light for light, but I do think as if his tyres have been in the back of his mind, and if he was pushing as much as he could have, I think potentially the gap would have been a bit bigger than it has. So I think Ballina keeping something in the tyres for the final couple of laps. Nevertheless, they will start to go off, as that's Joey off at turn 9. Potential contact with Yuri, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, back to the front, that gap 1.1, so Duncan clearly doing something right. Whether he'll get a proper shot at Ballina yet, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be tight for Duncan to be able to pull this one off if he does take it, especially with Benjamin at the moment keeping up with Duncan. It seems if Duncan improves the pace a little bit, Benjamin seems to be improving the pace a little bit. So it's almost like Benjamin is shadowing Duncan at the moment, potentially looking for a bit of late race drama to get himself into the fight for the win. But at the moment, Duncan, in terms of tyres, it is definitely not perfect, but guessing off of Ballina's sort of lack of pace in the last few laps, to me, would suggest that he's starting to either... I would, at this stage, right, it's way too early for him to start suffering really bad with the tyre wear. So I'd assume at the moment it is him just starting to back off the pace, lift, perhaps being way more cautious with the tyres, and just sort of managing that gap to try and keep it over a second while still managing his tyres. But I would say within the next 4 or 5 laps, we're going to start to see tyre wear really starting to hurt drivers. That's when we'll really see who has saved their tyres better, because whilst we can see the percentage on the TAS system, it's hard to get a precise reading of what each driver is exactly doing, because they are all... We've got Benjamin, who's looking better on his tyres, but pitted slightly later. But hey, in the end of things, he could end up with worse tyre wear, as Midnight and George Nader are battling through turn 1 now. And a bit of contact there between the two of them. Looks like George Nader got a bit of loose there, but Midnight does get P5, and I believe the championship leader there is on for another good points position. as battling between Hetkamper and Bandini. Not only for P13, but still, battling is battling, and it looks like they're enjoying it at least, as they fight coming through the final corner now. And whilst this battle doesn't really mean much at the moment, in the long term, perhaps if there is a late safety car, whoever is ahead out of these two, perhaps if they do pit for some fresh tyres, could make a big difference, especially with getting held up in the pits. It will be very interesting to see if there is a late safety car, who would benefit from that. But at the moment, it's looking pretty quiet throughout the field, and I doubt we'll see a late safety car at the moment. But as Zandvoort, and it can change in a heartbeat. And at the moment, at least, whilst I've been talking, I've noticed that Bellman's lead has got way under a second now. And it's times like this where I really wish I could see his tyre wear, because he could just be conserving. He could have lower tyre wear than Duncan. But looking at the lockup he had just then, I would imagine this could perhaps be the tyre wear really starting to hurt him. He is also minus in the fuel. He has slightly burned too much fuel on that car. So it looks like Yuri really is pushing at the maximum. And
Yuri.
Oh, sorry, that's my bad. I'm used to seeing Yuri in the Mercedes. Ballina. But yeah, Ballina at the moment doing very well to keep the lead. But that gap has come down a lot.
Yeah, riding on board with Ballina. I'm not entirely sure that the tyre system works exactly the same as it does in real life, but bit of a blister on the front left of Ballina's car. That's not going to have the same effect as it would in real life, because obviously the tyre model on this game is in no way realistic. But what that does show to me and you is that them tyres are wearing away, and Ballina's got his red light flashing at the end of the straight, which means he's derating, he's harvesting ERS at the end of the straight. So we've got a Haas coming out the pits now. I believe that's George Nader. Is it? No, it's Hetkamper. Sorry,
that's Hetkamper who has retired, and
hopefully
that car ghosts.
Yeah, it does. But yeah, Ballina struggling with his tyre wear and seemingly struggling with his tyre wear and struggling with his ERS consumption, because look at this, halfway through the lap he's got that red light flashing. So Ballina's going to want to start bringing it back, but a little mistake there from Duncan has put Benjamin right on the back of him. Benjamin not going for a move yet though. Duncan, he was on the verge of falling out the DRS zone. He'll get a helping of DRS here to close him back up, and another one down the main straight. But Duncan's really got to start putting the pressure on Ballina now if he wants to make a move, as Tim Wenting has gone off again.
Not been his race. We suggested qualifying perhaps some team tactics from the runner drivers, but it does look like Tim. It was him pushing it to the maximum, as he has not had the best of races. Looking at damage at the moment, he doesn't actually have any damage there, despite appearing to be in the wall. However, that could be a mistake on the TAS, as no, I don't think it is. I believe that is clear damage there for Tim Wenting. As I said, this race could be one of attrition. 12 drivers remaining, with 6 out of the race so far. But at the moment, looking like with about 4.5 laps to go in this Dutch Grand Prix, Ballina still just about in control of this race, but definitely not looking as comfortable as he was just a few laps ago.
No, if there was a time to use the squeaky bum time phrase, I think it would be now. 4 laps to go. Duncan well and truly within DRS range, and we'll have to see. But Ballina just not having the bite on them front tyres through the slow speed corners is harming him through this final sector, ever so slightly wide. We're talking millimeters, but then millimeters start to add up as they go to inches and meters and eventually miles if you count long enough. But Duncan certainly closing on the race leader, the Black Arrow Mercedes, and we should have a climactic finish here for the Dutch Grand Prix. But further back, an absolute train going on behind. From 4th, Sam Gamer did get George Nader. I think you touched on this a moment ago. George struggling in the final part of this race. At midnight now, the driver pressurising Sam for 4th place. We'll keep an eye on that. But the main battle we're going to be keeping our eye on is going to be this one at the front. Can Ballina hold on? Will them tyres hold on? Or will Duncan go through, or will it be Benjamin? Benjamin's still a factor in this race. Fresher tyres than Duncan, same lap old tyres as Ballina, but a harder compound.
I've got a feeling that if Benjamin can get past Duncan without losing the DRS to Ballina, Benjamin would be in a very strong position, as his tyre wear for this stage of the race a sizable difference. And I've been keeping an eye on the tyres wear at the moment, especially for Ballina's sake. Of course, with very worn tyres at the moment. I'm obviously having to compare him to Kai because of Ballina not having his tyre wear shown, as I believe there's a battle there between Lars and Quicksilver. Looks like Quicksilver has got up into 8th position there for the Red Bull team, the A and B team battling each other there. Although this season, AlphaTauri has almost been the A team with some of their results. But now it is very close up at the front here. And looking at the tyre wear, Kyle thinks at 66%. 1 lap worse tyres than Ballina. So Ballina, I've got a feeling, is around 62-63% on his tyres. So it's hard to sort of predict here still, because that gap between him and Duncan has come down a lot. Almost it's tricky to overtake in Zandvoort. By no means is it impossible. So I still think this race is all to play for here. And I have a feeling that Benjamin is almost sitting back and waiting for these two to start fighting before he actually starts to fight and join in it.
Yeah, I think Duncan's going to have the best opportunity he's had all race now. He's so close behind, he's got fuel. Ballina covers the inside. Both drivers starting to struggle for energy. It doesn't matter though, Duncan breezes past on the straight, and it does look as if Ballina is starting to run into some tyre struggles. So what we thought was a genius move with the safety car starting to hurt him now in the final couple of laps. Sam Gamer and Midnight are side by side into turn number 4. Midnight, who's won twice this season, moves up into 4th place. A good move, a tidy move there on Sam Gamer. They've been fighting all the way. Sam Gamer looking to come back at him though. Down the inside of turn number 8, he can't quite make it work. I thought they were going to make contact there into turn number 8. Status quo, however, 4th for Midnight, 5th for Sam Gamer. George Nader, well, I was going to say he's looking to pick up the scraps, but a little bit too far back. 2 laps left to go now. Can Ballina get close enough for a run on Duncan? Or Benjamin, he's just 0.2 of a second off. And look at how comfortable Benjamin is for ERS. Benjamin can still have a run at second here.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's going to be very close for Benjamin. He may be almost kicking himself that he hadn't pushed harder early in the race, but maybe he has been pushing flat out throughout. It'll be interesting to see how. I mean, this is going to be an easy overtake. He's almost no fight given by Ballina, as Benjamin has flown past there. And Benjamin up now into 2nd place. And for his championship, this is very much a needed 2nd place for Benjamin, who...
I wonder if Benjamin's going to use all of his ERS and have a go at Duncan now. We've got one more DRS zone to go. It's far-fetched. It certainly is far-fetched, but I don't think it's out of the question. Duncan struggling with ERS. We can see them red lights flashing. Could it be? Could Benjamin snatch a win here at his home Grand Prix?
It's going to be interesting to see.
He'll have to close off. He does have fresher tyres, remember. Let's not forget. 3-lap fresher tyres, 0.4 of a second is that gap. He'll have a little bit more bite through these medium speed corners, even better bite through the final sector, but I just think the dirty air a little bit too much for Benjamin to conquer VSR Duncan right now, and for all intents and purposes, without a mistake from Duncan, it looks as if he is going to cross the line and become a winner this season.
It's looking that way at the moment. Benjamin is using everything he had. Maybe if the race was 1 lap longer, he would have got him. But it isn't. The race is only 36 laps. And Duncan will win the Dutch Grand Prix. Benjamin gets 2nd place. And it's 3rd for Ballina, who led so much of it. As it is 4th for Midnight, taking him a solid group of points there for his championship challenge. Then it is Sam Gamer in 5th place, a strong result for the Ferrari driver. George Nader in 6th. It's a shame given some of the highs he had in this race to only come home in 6th. But it seems in terms of his pace, especially towards the end of that race, that was where he was. Then Kyle Ting in 7th. I mean, after qualifying in 8th, I'm not really sure what we expected from him, but it was still a strong drive for the McLaren driver. Lars in 8th, bringing home more points to the AlphaTauri team, which is definitely looking like a very strong lineup this season. Then it is Quicksilver for Red Bull in 9th position. Of course, I believe lagged out just before the start of the race, so it's a good recovery drive for him. Then it is VRT Luke taking the final points position for the Williams team. I mean, it's not the result you'd expect from Luke, but at least it's still a point. It's not like he's coming away from this for nothing. Then there's Yuri, who had a couple incidents in this race, down in 11th place. And finally, it's the runner of Tim Wentink, who is reversing down the main straight and has lost control of his car in reverse. And he's now going to spin it back around.
Yeah, Tim on for a personal best right now. Let's see. So he navigates the final straight, just gets it past the line. As always, in stark control of his car, displayed from Tim. 12th being last place, Benjamin, voted the driver of the day by the game.
Of course.
I'm not sure if others will have another say in that. But, good race, I have to say. As you mentioned, for Zandvoort standards, it's certainly a good race. Great battle at the front, and I think Ballina will be wishing that race was cut 3 laps short. Benjamin will be wishing that race was cut, or I should say extended by a lap, because I'm sure he would have had Duncan into turn 1.
Yeah, but I mean, you've got to give credit to Duncan now, because I mean, he used his ERS when he needed it. And he worked it out perfectly. He had just enough to keep his pace up until the final lap there, until Benjamin got right on the back of him, but Benjamin used his ERS perhaps too late in that race, and ended up with a P2, but that is still a very strong result for the Renault driver, who, correct me if I'm wrong here, has Benjamin got a win yet this season?
No.
Which is the reigning champion, after 5 races, still doesn't have a win. I'm starting to think the reigning champion curse is real, but still strong drive there from, and for the Dutch Grand Prix with a Dutch 1-2-3. Admittedly, not too surprising given the amount of Dutch drivers here, but still, all Dutch podium at Zandvoort. You'd imagine the crowd would love that. But yeah, Alex, could you invite the podium drivers to the party, please?
Of course. I'll shoot them an invite. An all Dutch podium in Holland as well, so that's one to make the locals happy.
As we await those drivers to join us, but it's a very entertaining race in around Zandvoort, which historically has not necessarily been a track known for its great racing. However, I must say today I've been very proved wrong by the ability to overtake around Zandvoort, and whilst it's definitely not easy, when drivers needed to overtake, they were able to. And it's not like Monaco, where no matter how quick you are, you're stuck behind the driver in front. These guys were... They look capable of battling, not necessarily the battle you'd arguably get at tracks perhaps like Monza, or perhaps even Silverstone, but it was still a lot of good battling here today, and in the end, it appears the quickest driver won the race. And Duncan takes his first victory of the season, and gets himself 25 glorious points.
Interestingly as well, we've got 3 different esports teams on the podium. VSR, CRG and VRT.
I'm sure they'll be very happy with that then.
Lots of tweets, lots of mentions this afternoon from the different esports accounts, but we'll give it a moment. Hopefully we get all 3. Joining us in just a moment, Jackson's going to be lining up his questions, doing his best Ted Kravitz impression, and interesting to hear from the drivers.
As we just await the final couple to join the party now. But it was definitely an interesting race from commentator's perspective. We saw a lot of action throughout the field. A race of attrition, as we almost predicted, although unlike in development here, it was the attrition was further down the order, not many, very clean up at the front of the order, as the final podium sitter joins the party now. So we will of course start with the race winner. Duncan, congratulations on a fantastic drive.
Thank you.
First of all, talk us through your race.
Yeah, it was a really good quali for me. I was really happy with that lap, and then it's really hard to save ERS around Zandvoort, so I used nothing in the first stint on the softs. Then I made my first pit stop and it was all going alright, but then the safety car and because of that, Balliner was just right behind me on the mediums. I couldn't defend. I tried. At the end, the pace was there. I overtook him, and that was the race win.
So Duncan, what was your thought process when that safety car came out and you realised that Balliner was going to be right behind you on those medium tyres? Were you planning to sort of try and hold the lead, or did you know that the best way was going to be to let him through and then perhaps get him back when those medium tyres died?
Well, I knew he was gonna pass me for sure, because those mediums are just a couple tenths per lap quicker than the hard. So my plan was just to defend a little bit, so he would have to use some of his ERS, and then just keep the gap as close as possible to him. But he broke the DRS, so that was really unfortunate. But at the end, I had the pace.
Very good, and congratulations on that win. Second place driver, Benjamin. It wasn't a great qualifying for you. I would have to assume that was a deliberate strategy choice from you. But in that race, getting second place, of course, wins something that you've got a lot of in the past. But are you happy with second place today, or did you think did you think you could get a bit more?
No, I think this was the maximum today with my bad quali. I tried to go for P11, but I was P13 and like 300s off, so it was really hard to time it. And I got, I wasn't happy with the safety car at first place, because I was pretty close behind the soft van, behind Balliner, I think 2.5 seconds, but I just pitted for hard and then saved the RS and only used it the final lap of the race.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, congratulations on your second place. You put in a good drive there, definitely a strong recovery drive, because of course it is very hard to overtake around Zandvoort, but you made your tyres work, especially when it counted. Moving on now to the third place driver, Balliner. I mean, you led quite a lot of laps in that race. You broke the DRS at one point. I mean, first of all, what were you thinking when that safety car came out? Did you think that was sort of a great thing for you? Did you think that was sort of the best situation you could be in? Or were you hoping that that race would have stayed green?
I hoped... my strategy call was, if there was a safety car, I would have gone to the mediums. Yeah, they will make it, and it will be a bit faster midpoint during the race. But I knew I was going to struggle at the end of the race. And as you see, I broke the DRS, but hadn't had any tires left. So yeah, that was pretty straightforward. I tried to defend him a little bit, but that wasn't enough. He had great pace, so.
Oh yeah, congratulations on your third place. Alex, do you have any questions that you would like to add?
No, nothing to add. Other than congratulations to the three drivers. Benjamin, I assume that was your brother in the background. I hope he's alright.
He was moaning and I kicked him.
I figured I hope he's alright. Pass on my best wishes to recover soon. And no, congratulations to the three of you.
Thank you.
Okay, so congratulations to you all for putting in a very strong drive today. You were the class of the field, it appears, as a lot of our drivers struggled to keep up with you guys at the front. Yeah, overall a very entertaining race from our perspective, Alex, and hopefully we see the same next week. Do you know what? I believe, is it Belgium next week, if I'm not mistaken? I really should look these things up before going.
I think I said it was Belgium, yes.
Okay then. Yeah. So those of you that watched, thank you very much, and make sure to join us next week for what I'm sure will be another thoroughly entertaining race. But until then, goodbye.